Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. We're back with a continuation in our series on best practices in managing projects in Camtasia. And I'm here with my guest, Jason Valade, Master Trainer from TechSmith's Customer Success Team. And we're going to deep dive into the area of library assets because we got some questions, didn't we, Jason?
We did, Gord, and thanks for having me back. So yeah, I was really, it was exciting to see the sheer number of comments and great conversations that the first video that created and kind of generated for us. And that's leading us into this part of the series of videos where you're right, we want to talk about library assets within the Camtasia library. So there was a couple questions. Let's start with our first one. So the first one was posed by Michael H., and he asks, what type of reusable things should I create library assets for? Now, Gord, you and I talked about this before. You have a couple examples, don't you?
Yes, Jason, I use library assets extensively in what I do. As you know, I do a lot of YouTube videos plus client projects, and I like to have assets that are reusable components to save me time in the creation process. So for example, here I have my Gord Isman folder, and in there, I'm going to show you a few assets. And you see I have this section here. I'm just closing up a few things here, but I have my YouTube end screen section. And in there, I have something that I created specifically for using for interview excerpt videos. So I will do an interview with someone that may be an hour long, but I want to take a 5-minute clip, but I want to end the clip in the YouTube video with an end screen that shows them with a pointer to the next video. So I've created this asset for reuse. I just add it to the timeline here through doing the right mouse button, add to timeline at playhead. And then what I do now is I'll just customize it. And so first off, I'll just scale it to fit the screen. And what I want you to notice here is that with this asset, underneath I have, if we play it from the beginning, I use the thumbnail. It fades in nicely. It has all my branding. So this image fades in, and then you see I got an overlay, and then I have the message, watch the full interview, and then I've animated arrows pointing to the section where in YouTube I will add on the end screen feature, which would be to show the interview video. So there'll be a little rectangle in there that will be clickable with the video. So this, all I have to do to tune this asset is go in here and change the shape on the bottom, which is that image we see at the start, which will be the thumbnail that I want to use. And that's it, it's done. So this is super fast and easy to use. Another example is another end screen here that I have, which I'm just going to add to the timeline at the playhead again. And you can see here, this one is another similar end screen with an arrow pointing, and I will have a little box here in the top left corner, featuring my ebook for people to opt in and go check out, and likewise the subscribe button. So as you can see, these pieces have animation. It had the white outline come in to draw around the box, and it's just timed for the right length for an end screen, and it's used in seconds, and I'm done. And another last one I'll share with you is something like my lower thirds. I have all kinds of lower third options, and these are things that I may commonly reuse. So again, I'll just go to the timeline and find the spot where I want to add it, and to go add to timeline at playhead. And now you'll see I have my nice lower thirds there instantly. And then because this one in particular is a Camtasia asset, I can easily go in and alter the text fields, which are here at the top, to be anything that I want. And it's great for reuse. And so, as you can see, I've got lots of assets here in my library, Jason. We can go on and look at all kinds of things. There you go. Those are a few good examples of library assets.
So that's great, Gord. And the biggest thing you hit on there for me is it saved you a lot of time. You did all the front loading and building of the assets, but now you just add them whenever you need to in any project and you're good to go. So that's great. Now, I believe we had some other questions that came in on our first video, some comments. Did you have another one that you wanted to share?
So Jason, our next question comes from Benjamin S. And he asks, can you show how to save an updated asset back into the library? And this is a very important thing because, as we know, reuse and the ability to update and change things for reuse is very important. So can you give us a little demonstration of how you manage assets in the library for doing this kind of thing for Benjamin?
Sure. Let's take a dive into my library right now. All right, Gord. So now we're looking at my Camtasia 2018 library. And as you can actually see, I have several libraries built up based on different projects, but we're going to go into my Valade library here. Now, I had a project I worked on earlier called Level Up. And inside this library folder, I have several assets, everything from icons and logos for our company to intro slides and stuff like that. So what I wanted to show you was this one. This is called Level Up Camtasia Title Slide. And I'm also going to add it to my timeline and zoom in. And just like you, Gord, I group these together. So this one, I'll play it through. It's a real basic one. It's got a catchy generic title and an actual title as a lead in for each one of my videos. And I left these text boxes available to be edited so that I could use this as kind of the base asset that I could change. So the first thing that I would do if I'm going to update an asset, which I would do for this, is I'm going to start by renaming my group. And that's just done by right-clicking on the group itself and selecting rename. And I'm going to type this one up and call it Gord. So now this asset is called Gord, which is different from the original Level Up Camtasia title slide. So now I can simply go into my group and change out any of the titles that I'd like to. So we'll select this one here. Maybe I want to apply a Camtasia-ish theme and call it Gord Isman right up here. And, I could put in youtube.com. So now I have an asset that started from the original asset piece, which was the Level Up Camtasia slide, and it's called Gord. So I've updated an asset that I already had in my library. And then to add it back into my library, I would simply right-click on that asset and click Add to Library. It'll immediately prompt me where I'd like it to go. It gives me an opportunity to name it. In this case, I'm just going to leave it called Gord because it took its name from the group itself. And I'm going to add it back to my Valade library. So that's pretty easy to do.
Yeah. So Jason,
Yeah.
that now looks to appear that it's gone on the bottom, like it's just part of a master list. So what do you do typically to manage this? Because you had the original in another folder. And at the same time, can you share with us, so this is a new addition to the library. Could I have created it and overwritten what was there? Because sometimes you may just want to update the assets that's there. And is there any permission concern?
So what you're talking about is having two of the same asset, different assets properties, but with the same name. So let's actually explore what that looks like from a Camtasia perspective. So we'll go back up to that same Level Up Camtasia title slide. I'm going to add it to my playhead, or add it to the timeline at the playhead. And this time we could make a change to it however we wanted. Maybe we're just going to change this to Gord again, only this time I did not rename my group. I left it the actual name that I started with. So when I go to add it to my library, I'm going to leave the exact same naming convention just to show you something and leave it in my Valade library. So now I have this Level Up Camtasia title slide sitting down here all by itself, like you said, added generically to the Valade library. But that other intro slide is still sitting up here in my Level Up project folder. Well, if this asset was going to be part of that project folder, I would simply click on it in the library and drag it up into that same folder, that Level Up folder, and drop it in here. Well, here's the challenge. Since I didn't rename the group, or I didn't name it when I added it back into the library, it has that same title as the first one, Level Up Cam Title Slide. So Camtasia is going to warn me, hey, an asset named that already exists in this location. Do you want to replace it with the one you're moving? And I get a couple of options. I can either say keep both, which if I do, it'll add this same slide back into this folder. It'll just add a parentheses with the number 1 because it's the first iteration of this version of the asset. Or I can choose to overwrite it, and that will replace my catchy title here version of this slide with the one that says Gord. So if I choose overwrite, it'll replace this asset, and that will be the only asset with that name in my library. If I choose to keep both, which I'm going to for this demonstration, I now have the original Level Up Camtasia title slide here, and then the Level Up Camtasia title slide with the 1 parenthesis here to show that it's a different version of that original file because it had the same naming convention.
Okay. So I'm curious now, if you actually chose to overwrite it. What does that imply for people that have already used that asset and put it on their timeline in the past? Is there's no effect on that? Isn't that correct?
So if I open up a brand new project and start from scratch and add this asset to my timeline, it's going to have no negative effect moving forward. It's just going to be the new asset applied to that project.
Yeah.
If I open up a project that already had that asset, it depends. Have I zipped that project up and imported that zip project, which contains all of its file types sitting in the media bin? Because as you know, every time we add an asset, it sits here in the media bin ready to go. Or or was it a project that I didn't zip up and it's looking for that reference file? As long as it's in the media bin as you had it originally, it will not affect that original project.
Right. So in essence, each time we add an asset from that moment in time, it's a new iteration copy in essence that goes to the timeline.
Absolutely. And that's why naming and putting them in certain folders for different projects is really important. Like as you saw, you have a ton of folders in your library ready for specific use cases. I am a big fan of using folders inside of libraries in Camtasia so that I can look right away. For example, working for TechSmith, I have a branded folder here that just has TechSmith branding information in it, icons, fonts, logos, and stuff like that. I'm going to keep that nice and clean for that project. And of course, if I ever want to add a new folder, all I have to do is scroll to the bottom of my library, right click, and create a new folder for whatever project I happen to be working on.
That's great. And didn't these features about extending the library's capabilities, some of them come in the current version release we're in, 2018?
Yep, Camtasia 2018 added a few pieces of functionality to the library. One, it added the library to the Mac version of Camtasia, which is excellent because our Mac users did not have that capability before. Two, it added the ability to search within your library. So if you knew you had an asset somewhere, but you didn't know where it was because your library had gotten quite large, you could search for that asset there.
Mm-hmm.
The third thing it did was it added these thumbnails to show you a little preview of what is inside of that library so that you could easily grab the correct item as needed. And four, and I think most powerfully, it added the ability to create multiple libraries so that you could have libraries available for YouTube projects, library available for Instagram projects, or libraries for me for like internal training or corporate clients or our live academy, which we have links to in the description.
So that's great. Thank you so much, Jason, for demonstrating the nuances of how to manage your library assets. And everyone, thank you for watching today, and thank you, Jason, for the help again. And this is one video of a few more to follow in our series. And stay tuned because there's more to come.
Can't wait, Gord. Thanks for having me.
Thanks.